Welcome to the Trailblazer Talks podcast. I'm your host, Courtney Hope Wilson. The heart behind this podcast is to encourage and equip you to discover your God-given purpose by sharing talks with people blazing trails right where they are. Each week, you'll hear from me and different guests on the show to talk about life, purpose, God, leadership, and a whole lot in between. I love having conversations with people, and I'm excited to get to bring you into those. My hope is that you'll grow and become poised for purpose. I hope each week that you'll feel more equipped to be a trailblazer right where you are. So let's get into this week's episode. Hey friends, this week I'm talking with my new friend Jodi Kinasewitz. I'm excited to bring this conversation to you because we're talking about a topic that's near and dear to my heart. This week we're talking all about mental health and how to overcome and some tips and tricks for that. We also hear Jodi's story and how she was able to overcome in her own story through her mental health journey. I hope this conversation blesses you and I hope it meets you right where you are. Let's hop on in. Jodi, thank you for being on the show this week. I'm so excited to talk to you and for the listeners to get to know you. It was so fun that we got to connect through something called Creatives. And it's just like a Christian online like networking group, so to speak, where it's for people who feel called to write and speak. And so we got to connect through that online platform. And I was excited to hear more about your story. So for those who may not know you yet, I'd love for you just to introduce yourself, tell them a little bit about you, about yourself and what you do.
Great. Thank you, Courtney, so much for having me. And I feel the same. I was so honored to meet you through Called Creatives and to have that opportunity. And then to find out that we live like 20 minutes from each other and we had no idea. But I'm just honored to be in company with you and the work that you're doing with sharing your faith and building God's kingdom and trying to reach others. So I applaud your efforts and your enthusiasm and your passion for what you're doing. And I really enjoy listening to your show. I get a lot of good wisdom and reminders and insights every week. So thank you for that. Yeah, I'm Jodi Kinasewitz, and I'm a wife to my husband, Matt, almost 20 years. It'll be 20 years in August. We do live in Mason. We have 4 kids that span 17 down to 12. So our oldest is a senior. She's going to be headed off to college in August. So that'll be a big change for our family. I'm a teacher. I did special education for 21 years at the junior high level. I worked primarily with higher functioning students with learning disabilities in the areas of reading and writing. And then last year was my first year. I transitioned to an elementary building where I'm a reading specialist. So did half the year in person with that. And then we had COVID and the lockdown. And this year I'm back in that same position and I work with kindergartners through 4th grade. So I teach all 5 grade levels, just the kiddos that need to be pulled out with some more support for their reading skills and strategies. And I'm a yoga teacher, and my big passion right now, I know I shared a little bit with you, is leading my Christian-inspired yoga class called Faithful Flow. We have a dog, and we just do family life. We're busy with our kids' schedules and calendars and enjoying the nice weather and getting ready for soccer and baseball season and ready to wrap up a school year and kind of have a somewhat normal summer, we hope.
Yes, same. Oh yeah, I'm so excited for summer and I'm hoping to go to like a Reds game and all that kind of stuff. Now they got tickets back in person. I'm like, yes, I'm going to go get me some tickets and go see some baseball in person. It'll be so fun.
Yes, sporting events live will be quite a treat. That's for sure.
Yes, it'll be so much fun. And just to like, I don't know, have a semi-normal summer this summer. I'm looking forward to it too. And I know we already mentioned how we met through Called Creatives, but I know also too, you recently posted about something that you're working on with Milk and Honey Books to publish a devotional, which is super exciting. And I was excited to see about that. But I'd love for you just to tell us a bit more about that and just how the Called Creatives community has helped you with just discovering your calling and walking in that more, and about the devotional you've been working on.
Yeah. So Called Creatives is a group that I kind of stumbled upon, I guess, maybe in the fall or winter. Last summer, when we had so much extra time on our hands, I just spent a lot of time writing. I've always been a lover of reading and writing, listening to a word spoken, however I can take in information. I've always been very passionate about that. But obviously there were a lot of emotions and raw, fresh things that were on everyone's minds last year. And my outlet was to take really long walks and then to write. And I really just got this passion for it. And I felt very fulfilled and inspired. And it was like one of those things that kind of woke me up early, like, I want to get up and write, and kept me up late. I'm just going to stay up, and because we're not going anywhere tomorrow. Nobody has any plans. There's nothing to do. So it was like, and I've always heard, if it wakes you up early and it keeps you up late, then it's a passion. And so I really got into the writing and just started obviously following more people who are in the writing communities, and came upon Called Creatives. And I actually used, I got some money from my in-laws for Christmas and my birthday, and I used that money to treat myself to a membership to Called Creatives. And it's been wonderful because it's just this community. Well, I met you through there. So that's been great. And it's this community that just takes women who are interested in reading, writing, speaking, whatever that looks like for them, business ownership, and kind of starting where you are and just say, do the next right step, like do the next right thing wherever you are. And the thing I think I like most about it, Allie Worthington and Lisa Whittle, the ladies who own it and do the trainings, they're just very concise, great, like down to the nitty gritty details of do this, don't do this. And mostly what I admire about them and I admire about the community is you're doing it all for God. Like, don't worry about the numbers. Don't worry about what it looks like, what it sounds like. It will get there. But right now, when you're starting and all throughout, even as the interest grows or your audience grows, you're doing it for Jesus. Like, that is the bottom line, that you want to share faith. And I love that is their message. And you see that from them in their own platforms and in their own writing and in their own speaking. But also I joined what's called like a mastermind. So you have like a little cohort that you let them know what areas you're interested in, whether it be speaking, writing, podcasting. And they kind of pair you up with women from all over the country, which is really neat. So my mastermind, we meet twice a month, and it's me in Ohio. One of the ladies is from California, one's in Arizona, one's in New Jersey, one's in Philly, and we're all on different spectrums. Some of us are more into the writing. Some of us are more into the speaking and the IGTVs and the YouTube. And so we just really cheer each other on and encourage each other. And it holds us accountable a little bit, because it's okay if you don't have anything to share that you're working on or that you've done, but it's like you want to hear what everybody's doing and you want to share something. So it kind of pushes you out of your comfort zone, or me anyway, a little bit to do something, to say, this is what I'm working on. This is what I'm hoping for. And we've just been cheering each other on and editing for each other and giving feedback on names and titles and, just different things. So that's been great. And the really cool thing I think about it, I think I was talking to my husband, Matt, I just said, it's just really neat that like I get together twice a month with ladies that I've never met in person, and we laugh and crack jokes, and that we're all praying for each other. And when we start our sessions opening in prayer, we close in prayer, and we pray for each other throughout the weeks that we're not meeting. And that just feels really good to know, like, I've got so-and-so in Arizona, like, praying for me right now, praying over my passion and what I want to do to help bring people closer to God. And so that's just a really awesome community feeling that I've gotten from Called Creatives. So the other thing that has come from Called Creatives for me is a lady by the name of Jenny Erlingson put a post out similar to your post about podcast interviews. She owns a smaller publishing company called Milk and Honey Books, and that whole story is fascinating. I mean, if you haven't looked her up or read into her story, I highly recommend people go check her out, because she and her family right now are living in Iceland doing mission ministry work. And her whole goal is everything that she publishes, she wants to have available in Icelandic, I guess is how you would say it, their native language, which is a really big task when you look at the translation chart. But anyway, she put something out. She's trying to get her publishing company up and running and out there. So she's really, I think, trying to focus on doing a compilation of things. So she did kind of an all call. If people want to submit devotionals, we'll give them a review and see if you can get into a women's devotion journal that she's going to be pushing out, I think, April 27th. So I submitted 2. I'm not sure if one or both are going to be in the devotion journal, but that was just super exciting and uplifting because, again, I just want to share my story, but always bring in this what I'm sharing. I'm hoping it'll bring people and point people toward Jesus, closer to God, because really in the end, that's what it's all about. So yeah, that's really exciting because I'm not a published author. I've never written anything that's been published or out there. Like I said, it's just this passion that was kind of laid on my heart around this time last year. And it just has never, I kind of tried to shrug it away a couple times, like, I don't have time for this, or no, nobody wants to read this, or who cares, or people are saying what you're saying, like everybody's saying this. But it just wouldn't leave me alone. So when I say it, I'm speaking to what became pretty clear. It was the Holy Spirit saying, do this. And maybe it's just for me, and that's okay. But it's just one of those things that it's not like I'm like, oh yeah, forget it. You know, I just can't, I can't put it on the back burner or put it aside. It's just always there. So.
Yeah, no, I think that that's awesome. And I mean, honestly, everybody I know who either speaks or writes or does anything publicly, we've all felt that imposter syndrome at some point in time of like, there's so many voices out there. But the thing that I've learned too is like, God has gifted each of us with our own unique voice and our own like sphere of influence. And if, you know, there might be 5 people writing on purpose, or there might be like 1 million people writing on it, but only one person can tell your story, and that's you. So I think that it's awesome that you've been obedient and just taking any step that has been put in front of you. And I think that that honestly speaks volumes, because there's a lot of people who are afraid to take that first step in general. And like, I know you may have experienced a little fear too, but you still did it, you know, and I think that's awesome. I would love to talk a little bit more. I know that we connected about this, and this is part of your story. I know we've both walked through some anxiety and depression, and that's been a part of both of our stories. But I would love, if you're okay with it, just to share more about your story and just kind of what you have found helpful in kind of fighting that battle, and any encouragement you have for people who may be in the thick of it right now.
Yeah. You know, and this is something 3 years ago I wouldn't have been able to talk about. And I think that's the first thing that I would tell someone if you are struggling with anxiety or depression or just extreme type A personality. For me, it was a lot of OCD type behaviors, wanting to control everything, to fix everything, and thinking naively that I was in control, and realizing that was really just a mask of my anxiety. Like I was anxious all along, but I was masking it by being in control and having everything scheduled and planned. But I think the first thing that I want to make sure that I would tell someone, if you are in that place, and I'm sure that people have heard this before. It was said to me many times, and I was like, yeah, right. You know, but it will get better. It does get better. It will get better. You just have to really hang on. And for me, now that I'm kind of through that fire, I can look back and see like my hanging on, my hope was in God, because I felt like there was nothing else that I could hold on to. And so I think a really important thing for anybody, and maybe this seems like common sense, but I know for me, it was very difficult, is you have to tell someone what you're going through, what you're feeling. It was easy for me to tell my husband. Matt knew right away, like something was off. And I said, yeah, I just am not feeling like myself, like something's not right. Something is off. I don't know what it is. So please, right away, I would tell people to talk to somebody and let some close, trusted friends or loved ones in on what you're struggling with, because that was kind of my mojo too. Like I would just kind of stuff feelings down. I'm not stressed. I'm not upset. I'm fine. I can do this. I don't need any help. No, I can do the mom hat, the wife hat, the teacher hat, teach Vacation Bible School, take a personal day, but go read in my kids' classroom. I can't volunteer at school because I'm teaching school, but I'll still take the cake up on the night before to make sure, just that, like that obsessing over controlling and trying to create this perfect life and doing it all until I reached a point where I couldn't. And I think my body was giving me signals for a long time, and I just kept stuffing them away and ignoring them. And then I think God was like, okay, I'm going to bring you to your knees because I need your attention. And when I was going through it, I can just remember thinking like, how, why God, like, how long is this going to last? Why am I going through this? And I kept wanting an answer like, oh, it must be my hormones. Cause it was like, I was 41. So I had entered a new decade. It must be my hormones. My thyroid's off. Go to the doctor. Nope. Everything's fine. I have a history of a heart condition. So I'd had an ablation. So I'm like, oh, it must be my heart. And I think it was a combination of both, like, because when you're anxious, your heart does have an off arrhythmia. And I'm like, is it anxiety? Is it my heart? I bet it's my heart. I surely wouldn't be like feeling this down and this anxious. It's got to be my heart. Then it was a little bit of both of those things. But I think, like I said, now that I've lived through it, and I'll try to like do this quickly just because I want people to really be able to hear what I call God winks. And at the time I didn't see them and I was frustrated and I'm like, why is this happening? But once I was through it and I looked back, I'm like, that's exactly why that happened. And look, this happened here. And it was just like this, he orchestrated this perfect story of, this is who you are, and I love who you are, and I created you to be who I created you to be, but I want to use these things to work for you, not against you. Because I don't think there's anything wrong with the type A, Enneagram 3, if people use that term, planner type of person. Those are all some great and wonderful skills if you use them in a healthy way. So it all started probably, if I can, like I said, I'm sure that was like years before that too, but at the end of 2016, the end of that school year, there was a lot of changes going on in our building. And I was told that I had to move classrooms. And I had already moved like multiple times throughout my teaching career because of construction or whatever. And I'm like, oh my gosh, again, you've got to be kidding me. And it was kind of a last minute, like, school ends next week and we need you to move your room. And it was, it was fine. But I wasn't happy about it. But that would be the first example of like God working in a really powerful way. I mean, he knew all along why I was moving rooms. I just didn't know it. So I taught down in that part of the building for a full year. And it's a big school. So it was people that like, I knew them, but I wasn't like friends. We didn't hang out. I didn't see them on a daily basis. I would see them at weekly staff meetings in passing kind of thing. So one of the ladies who taught across the hallway, that whole next year of 2016 and 2017 just became close or friendly with each other. We had shared conversations in the hallways. And so we built a relationship, which I didn't know I would need that relationship or how impactful that relationship would be until the fall of 2017. And then I was told that I was a language arts teacher for years, but that I would be supporting students in a math classroom. And I was like, oh, math is not my thing. Like, I don't want to do this. And that was all a God wink too. So that all kind of transpired at the end of the 16 school year. So the start of 16 and 17, I was meeting those people, teaching math, and building two very important, close relationships that ended up being huge cornerstones for when I went into my unforeseen season of extreme insomnia, anxiety, and depression. So spring of 2017, I was hopeful that I was going to get a different position in the building, and that didn't pan out. But I thought, well, I'm good. I've done this for a year. I'm in my new room. I'm situated. This is fine. This is good. This is just God saying, Jodi, this is where you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to be doing. Like, don't fight it. But that summer, it just kept getting worse. I stopped sleeping, and I have no idea why. I was extremely anxious. And like I said, I've always known myself to be an anxious person, but not to be extreme of, I didn't want my husband to leave the house because I was afraid something would happen with my heart and the kids wouldn't know what to do. Like, it was just, my parents are coming for a visit. I need to clean the house. I should make a pasta salad. Like, crazy things that aren't crazy at the time, but I just knew it was different. It was a different type of anxiety. And then that lack of sleep and feeling so anxious, obviously anxiety and depression go hand in hand, led to me feeling very depressed. Like, what is wrong with me? Why can't I fix this? Questioning my faith, which I think is something that many Christians maybe struggle with, and why there is such stigma around it is, I don't know that this is said so much anymore, but I think growing up, it was not that my parents ever made me feel this way, and nobody in my church ever said this to me, but it was just kind of an underlying impression that I had that, like, well, if you had enough faith, like, you would be at peace in Jesus and you would be filled with joy just because you know you're his child. And I didn't know all of that. And so I began questioning that, like, Jodi, maybe your faith isn't as strong as it is. Like, don't you trust God? Don't you love God? Like, you know, you need to be able to surrender. Why can't you surrender? So that whole internal battle started as well. So that was the summer of 2017. And like I said, I was very open and honest with my husband right away. He knew. We had reached out to a few different counselors that didn't go so great. So it was just this back and forth dynamic of, I want to fix it. I'm always a fixer. Why can't I fix it? Why is God letting this happen? What is my problem? And at that point, really nobody outside of my family, my kids didn't even really know at this point in time. My husband did, and my in-laws, and my parents, and my brother, and a few of my close friends, but it wasn't like something I felt like the whole world had to know. I mean, they could just look at me and be like, oh my gosh, she's like having a breakdown. Look at her. That's how I felt. And so I think that's something else that I would share with people. Like, you don't often look that way to other people. Like, I mean, many people said to me, like, Jodi, I had no idea. I'm so sorry. You seemed fine. So it's easy to put up that mask and that front of everything looks okay. And so I think it's just, I can see now it's part of God's work and calling in us to be vulnerable with each other, because that's how we lean into each other and we lean into our faith and we help each other grow. And I think the more you share stories, the more people that'll be like, oh, yes, I felt that way. Oh my gosh, me too. I'm so glad I'm not the only one. And I can't believe once I did start being open, because I went, we had that summer of 2016. I went to school that summer or that fall of, 17. And I just couldn't do it anymore. I was like physically, mentally, emotionally exhausted. I would cry at my desk on my conference bell. My mind would freeze, like, which key opens this filing cabinet? I forgot my password. I would be going to the bathroom to like try to pull myself together between classes. And then there was one morning when I was at my desk before students came in, and I just broke. Like, I just couldn't do it. And thankfully, one of my best friends teaches in the building or taught in that building with me at the time. And I called her classroom and she just knew. Like, I didn't even have to say anything. And she came and got me and drove me home. And that was on a Friday in October. And my husband and I met. We decided we were going to set the kids down and be like, you've probably noticed mommy's been not feeling so well. And I just wanted to be open and honest with them right away. They knew. I said, just like I had to go get help for my heart a couple of times, I now need to get help for like my mind. Mommy's not sleeping and I'm just feeling we just said the words, I'm feeling very anxious and that's making me feel sad and depressed. And I want to take some time to get better. So it was going to just be a couple weeks off of school. And my principal, a fabulous leader and person and a dear, dear soul and friend, encouraged me to take that time. And that 2 weeks ended up being an entire quarter, which I felt guilty about. But again, looking back, I needed that time. I needed that time to find a counselor that worked with me and for me. I think, sometimes people think like medicine maybe is a quick fix, and it just wasn't for me. We had a very difficult time finding a medicine that worked for me. Most of them made me feel way worse. And I'm like, I can't do this. And we finally found one. And I think that I don't carry any shame in that anymore. I'm like, God gave us doctors and medicines for a reason. Because I did carry that guilt for a long time. Like the kids would say, what are you taking that for? And I would just say, well, this helps mommy feel better, and just kind of trying to explain it with, the same way, like their dad, my husband takes medicine for his asthma or whatever it is. Like, it's okay. It's okay. And I need to go talk to somebody about how I'm feeling. And I need to take some time off work so I can get some rest and catch up on months of lack of sleep. So the God winks that I was referring to, though, so the woman that I became closer to at school when I moved my rooms actually was the one who encouraged me to go to a yoga studio that she goes to. And I'm like, yeah, maybe, I don't know, like yoga's not really my thing. And then she also recommended the counselor who ended up being just a wonderful support for me. She offered Christian-based counseling, and she just helped me tremendously. She was a big life preserver for me during that time in my life. So I was so upset about having to move classrooms, but then I look back and I see, oh my gosh, like God moved me down there because this other teacher was going to be the one to point me to a counselor who was really effective for me and helped me grow in so many areas, and then introduced me to this whole world of yoga that I had kind of like brushed off for years when everybody's like, you should try yoga, it's great. And I'm like, no way. And now here I am like teaching yoga classes. So, that was a God wink. The year that I really went through my big mental and emotional battle, my dad and I had more time together than we had ever had. My parents live about 3 hours from here. He was my daily support. He called me every single day to make sure that I was, taking care of myself, that I was, he was always you got to get up out of bed, get dressed, get out and do something. As soon as you lay in bed, you're going to want to stay there all day. And like that whole year just to check in. And he came out more than he normally would, oftentimes without my mom. And he would make excuses like, oh, I want to be here when you guys get the new windows, or I'm going to check some things out on your roof. And like, he would I'll do some yard work. And so I knew he was coming just to lay eyes on me and check in, which was wonderful. And I didn't fight that at all. And just a little bit more than a year later, we lost him unexpectedly. So, I think I look back sometimes and I think, oh my gosh, like I kept saying like, God, why are you putting me through this? Like, are you preparing me for something that's really gonna like bring me to my knees, and you need to make me stronger? Because life had always been pretty easy, like, and that was what was hard for me too. And I think sometimes that's for people who struggle with mental illness. We get so wrapped up in the like, I have a great life, like nothing's wrong, like why am I feeling this way? And that's the biggest thing. There is really no why, and there's nothing that can be fixed. It just is. Sometimes life just is. And so maybe that was God preparing me to have skills in place and strategies and already be much more grounded and rooted in my faith, so that, I mean, losing my dad was devastating. It's still a daily struggle, but I felt equipped to fight that battle, because I'm like, okay, I've done something really hard before, and it made me want to live better and do better for him and because of him. So that's my story. I went on quite a bit there, but
yeah, I think your story is so powerful, and I can see how God is using that, because I know that, like you were saying, it's maybe no one specifically told you kind of the stigmas of like, oh, well, you just need to pray more, or you just need to, if you're not close enough to God, if you're struggling with this. And I know that over the past year, especially, I think I've seen the stats that mental illness and mental health has like skyrocketed of people struggling with it. And a lot of people struggle silently. And I think it doesn't matter which generation you're in. I know people in my generation struggle, your generation, and even my mom's generation. And I think that it's so important, for this conversation to happen, because somebody could be listening and they could be silently struggling, and maybe they are a mom, or maybe they're, in college, or maybe they, are empty nesters at this point. And we go through different things in life. And I think it's so important to know that it doesn't matter what age you are, what stage you're at. Like, if you're struggling with any of this, anxiety, depression, like, one, it's okay. Two, you are allowed to talk about it. And three, it doesn't reflect your relationship with God. Like, you struggling with that doesn't mean that you're any less of a Christian. I think it's we all go through stuff. And just like you said, like, if it was your heart, people were like, oh my gosh, let's make sure you go to the doctor and get help. But when it's our minds, people are so quick to be like, well, you just need to pray more. You just need to, suck it up. And it's like, no, like, our brain is like the most important part of, well, our heart and our brain are the most important parts of our body. And if we take care of our heart with like different medicines and whatever, like, why would we not take care of our brains? So I would love any thoughts that you have to encourage those who might be struggling silently that are listening, and any encouragement you have for them.
Right. Well, I think, like I said, is even if you just find one person to share, because the more you try to hide it, that causes more anxiety in and of itself. One, again, point people to faith and to the word. I mean, that was one thing that I really, it's not that I didn't know it, but I had kind of forgotten it when I wasn't in this deep daily study of God's word, is there's mental illnesses and struggles and battles all throughout the Bible. And I think, those are in there, those for a reason. Moses and Jonah, and even Jesus himself, the night before he was crucified, like, off by himself, like, God, please take this from me. And so I think having that connection, if you already are a faith-filled person, try really hard, be in prayer and reach out to somebody of faith, seek Christian counseling if you can, because people will be able to remove the curtains and the clouds that you have up, because either you are so exhausted or you are really anxious and you just can't think clearly. And they will remind you that, God's word even says, like, your life is going to be hard, but I'm going to see you through it. And, for me, I just really had to cling to certain scriptures. I'm not very good at memorizing like the books and the verses, but I know the words. So one that is just near and dear to my heart is Colossians 4:2. Devote yourselves to prayer, be watchful, and be thankful. Because when my dad was out for one of the visits, and it was probably it was the second to last time I saw him before he had his heart attack and passed. he just grabbed my face in his hands and he said, sis, this is such a short Bible verse, but it always helps me. Like, just devote yourself to prayer. Like, be watchful, because the devil looks to worm his way in. And when he knows we're weak, he wants to take us down. So be on the lookout. Like, what's he trying to do to make you feel this way or think this way? And then be thankful for all the things that you do have. Just write those down, like, every day. And that's become a habit of mine that I do every morning and every night. I call it 3 a day, twice a day. I have to write down 3 things that I'm thankful for every morning. And then it's the last thing I do before I go to bed at night. And sometimes you have to dig really deep. Like, it's like coffee. But you know what? I'm thankful for this cup of coffee this morning, or whatever it is, because sometimes days are really hard and you're like, well, I don't really know what I'm thankful for today. It wasn't that great of a day. But that one was really huge for me. And Romans 12:12, which is rejoice in hope, be patient in affliction, and persistent in prayer. And I think the patient in affliction is really hard. I know it is for me, and I think it probably is for most people. We don't want to be patient when we're struggling. We want to move through it as fast as we can. And I think God is calling us to be patient, because whatever that struggle is, or whatever goodness is in our life, he's using it all to, like, make our story complete and to use us for what he put us on this earth for. I mean, we were created with a very specific purpose, everybody. And no matter what that is, for some people, maybe it is always good. I doubt it. I think everybody has some struggles in life. And for some people, and I'm sure them, there's some people that just seem like they get the raw end all of the time. It's just struggle after struggle after struggle. And you think, my goodness, how do they do it? But so, talk to someone, get into God's word, have a couple of go-to scriptures that you can just say that'll fill your cup and keep you going. And just knowing that, the hard days do get better and there is that light at the end of the tunnel. It seems so cliche, but it is so true. And again, just the power of finding that right combination of the Christian counseling and sharing with your family, being open and honest, because I think right now, being a teacher and being a mom of 4 kids, there's nothing better we could give these children than for them to see and to hear that it's okay to feel anxious. It's okay to feel sad and you don't know why. And that it's not a problem. It's not a burden, that everybody has feelings and we need to feel those feelings. So I think, at first I was so worried about what I was doing to my kids. Jodi, what is happening? They're getting up, they're going to school, and you're home all day. And I can remember driving by their schools. I had to pass, the schools are set up right along the main road that runs through the city. And I would have to go right through and pass all the campuses to go to my counseling. And for the longest time, and it was just the devil, like, look at you, like, are you kidding? Like, you're driving yourself to counseling. Your kids are up and they're at school and your husband's at work and everybody else, life is going on. And then the more I went to counseling and the more I worked with my doctor to find a nice balance with my medication, then it started becoming like, yeah, look at you. You're taking care of yourself because you love these kids and you're fighting for yourself and for them. And you're showing them everybody falls down sometimes. It's going to happen eventually in life, and that it's okay to fall down and it's okay to ask for help. It's, so I think for kids, like I said, I just see it in the classroom and with my kids, knowing that it's okay to need help and to fail and to fall. It's just something they need to not only hear, but hope and pray that they see the work that was done, and that I got the help and I got better, and that really it was the biggest source of all of that was my relationship with Jesus.
Yeah. And I think that will speak volumes too, as they grow up and, go off to college and, go about life, seeing that you had the strength even when you were down. You did the thing, you got the help you needed. And I couldn't agree more. I love going to Christian counseling. I think that it's been so helpful for me just to have that safe space to talk and to get tools in my tool belt to battle, because, I've gone through several different episodes of different levels of anxiety and depression. But counseling has been helpful because it's like the first time I went through it, I didn't have those tools in my tool belt, but then I started going to counseling and got some tools to the same thing you we're talking about with doing daily gratitude and stuff like that. And kind of some of those cognitive behavioral habits of, kind of grounding yourself back into, here's what I'm thankful for today. But I think any parents listening, that will just be so awesome for them hearing your story too, to let them know, one, hey, if you need to get help or whatever, that is okay. It doesn't make you any less of a parent and everything. And secondly, it'll show your kids what strength can look like in the middle of what may seem like weakness or pain or whatever. And it shows them that emotions are okay, and feelings are okay. And going through hard stuff is okay. It's not fun, but it's okay to go through. So then they will then maybe get help even sooner because they might recognize that. So I think that that's so amazing. So the question that I love to ask everyone who comes on the show, just because the heart of this show is hearing people's stories who are blazing trails right where they are for God. I always love to ask, what's one piece of advice that you would love to just leave with the listeners that you've learned along your trail in life?
It's going to be kind of two, but I'll get it. I used to, I felt like I was always learning to live. You go to school and you're learning all these things because you want to graduate high school. And then you go to college and you go to the classes and you learn all these things because you want to get a job. And then you learn the ropes of the job. And then for me and my walk of life, then it was learning how to be married and share space with someone, and then learning how to be a mom. So what to expect when you're expecting, that totally dates me, but it was this constant learning so I would know how to be. And I really just have realized that just by living life, just day to day, just live it as it comes. I think you still need to be responsible and you need to plan and you need to be proactive and hardworking. Absolutely. I am not for the laissez-faire, whatever today brings, it brings, it's fine. I think God wants us to be actively involved and being responsible with the lives that he's given us. But I feel like I'm starting to live life more, and I'll learn along the way, if that makes sense. Whatever trials come or whatever opportunities come, I'm going to just kind of go for it, live it, do it if that's what my heart is being called to do. And, if I fail, I fail. If I learn something and it takes off, that's great. And to just go with it. But at the same time, I think also just growing for yourself, but also for the ones that you love. Because I think that's just, whether it be friends or neighbors or family, when we see other people pursuing their passions and living life to the best and fullest that they can, it just sparks this little fire and kind of embers all along the way to make other people want to have that same passion and that same zest for life. Because we just get the one life, and trying to make it all that it can be in the time that you have, because you just don't know.
I think both of those are great pieces of advice that we can learn from. And one thing too, I love to ask people, just because I think it's fun, what are just some things you're loving lately in life? Just some current favorites. It could be as easy as, going to a restaurant, or just something that you found, a new product lately, but just what's something you're loving right now?
I am loving, of course I have more than one answer, Courtney, this, but I don't know how much my family's loving it, because I don't think my voice is quite as good as hers, but Carrie Underwood's new album, Savior, that she released last week.
Ooh.
Oh my goodness. It just takes me back to childhood church. It's all the old gospel songs and her beautiful voice. And I was cleaning the house this weekend. I had my AirPods in and I'm just singing at the top of the lungs. Of course I sound good because I hear her, and they're all looking at me like, stop, Mom, what are you doing? And my husband's like, Jodi, like, no. And I'm like, what? It's Carrie Underwood's new album. Like, it's great. And they're like, she's great, but we don't hear her. We only hear you. Like, but it's wonderful. It is just, it's beautiful. It's so well done. And I also am really liking kind of part of the whole like meditation, getting grounded type thing, either in the morning or in the evening or sometimes both. There's an app called the Pause app. It might be 1 minute pause, but it's free. It's fabulous. It's John Eldridge put it out there. It's based off his book, Get Your Life Back. And it's literally, you just get a reminder to stop and pause for 1 minute. And it's a guided, he speaks. And after you do the 1 minute a couple times, then you can unlock a 3 minute one, and then you can unlock a 5 minute. And they recently added with COVID, specific ones for mental strength, like to help people get through what's, just the news and the just getting through this year that has been handed to us and has been such a struggle for so many. And then Morgan Harper Nichols, she's a poet and an artist. I love her little, just, those little 3 to 5 minute podcast talks that she does where she reads poetry, and it's all about embracing yourself and honoring today and taking risks and one step at a time. And her voice is beautiful. Her words are beautiful. Her artwork that she posts on Instagram is lovely. It's so nice. I love those. So that's kind of, and just being outside, the weather's nice. So outside fire pits and, dinner on the deck and those kinds of things. I'm just loving all of that.
Mm-hmm. Me too. I'm so I love winter and fall and all of that. But this year I've just been like itching for summer. I'm like, I need warm weather. But no, those are all great things. Well, how can everyone connect with you? And is there anything that you want to make sure that you share or promote with the listeners before we hop off today?
I'm on Instagram and Facebook, Instagram J Kinasewitz and Facebook Jodi Kinasewitz. Part of the quarantine thing kind of led me, I kind of have a website blog, if you want to call it that. It's very skeletal. That might be the next thing that I try to dip my toes into and make that more than what it is. But there's a link to that in the bio of my Instagram, but I don't have a specific URL address. And the only thing I would say is just, again, if you have any interest with the writing or the speaking or podcasting, Called Creatives is a great place to go. Milk and Honey Books, check them out. Jenny Erlingson, you can find them on Instagram. That women's devotional journal is tentatively set to release April 27th. So I'm super excited to be a part of that and the work that she's doing to build God's kingdom. And yoga, give it a try. You never know. And there are Christian inspired classes out there. I think there's quite a few in the Cincinnati area. So I'd love to have people come to mine. You can reach out to me if you want to. We kind of have some COVID restrictions and limitations on the number of people that can come. But, that if you have thought about giving yoga a try, do it. And if you are already somebody who practices on a regular basis, I really encourage you to do, a practice centered around scripture and prayer and see how wonderful that is.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'll be sure to link you in the show notes and everything too, so people can just click on through and find you. But thank you so much for sharing your story and being on the show. I know that that's going to encourage so many people because I think that there are so many people who are silently suffering. And I think your story will give them, one, permission, and two, freedom to get the help they need and to take that step of faith to start going in the right direction. So thank you so much, Jodi.
Thank you, Courtney, for having me and for giving me the chance to share my story and to hopefully bring people closer to God. I really appreciate it and all the work that you're doing. You're doing a great job. So I appreciate you.
Well, I hope Jodi's story encouraged you and inspired you today and helped you to know that you're not alone in whatever your struggle may be. I know that so many people can relate to Jodi's story and have walked through similar things, and I hope that it helps you to have those conversations with your kids as well if that's the season of life that you find yourself in. And if you haven't, make sure that you are subscribed to the podcast wherever you listen so that you can get the episodes first each week right when they come out. And if you haven't left a review yet, we would love for you to leave a review so that more people can find out about the show. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.